Bilingual web magazine. Dig Tokyo. Language and Education 9. Baseball is for radio, football is for TV, soccer is for social media. NHK E-Tele SNS Eigojutsu. Hashtag World Cup. Aired July 19th, 2018. 1. Prologue. Our theme this week was the 2018 FIFA World Cup. This was our second time talking about a sports-related topic after featuring Showtime on April 26th. On our show, we present tweets about a specific topic that are interesting either in terms of content or English usage. The challenge with sports-related topics is that an ongoing season or tournament means that a topic might be the talk of the town one day, but completely forgotten the next. It's difficult to read how a sports story will develop in terms of social media. As a result, we're left with no choice but to frame the episode around old tweets, or look back on an event after the fact. With the World Cup, that meant we'd have to go all the way back to 2014 when the last tournament was held. So we decided to just look back on the event after the 2018 tournament came to an end. Our MC's partner this week was Hide-san, whose soccer credentials are legit. His high school soccer team was runner-up in the All-Japan High School Soccer Tournament, and was champion of the Inter-High School Sports Festival for soccer. He was even good enough to be scouted by the Yokohama Flugels of the J-League straight out of university. He's well versed in the game and even appears on TV as a soccer commentator. So on this day, during rehearsal and in between script meetings and the actual taping, he talked passionately about soccer and the World Cup. As for me, as I mentioned on the show, I was more engrossed with Wimbledon, one of tennis's 4 major Grand Slam tournaments, held in London. At a script meeting a few weeks ago, I proposed hashtag Wimbledon as a theme we could feature on the show, but was rejected on the grounds that it was more UK-centric than US-centric, and the Japanese in general weren't paying much attention to the tournament. In the end, Nishikori lost to Novak Djokovic in the quarterfinals, but the fact that he won a set, especially considering he'd just recently returned to the tour after an injury, all in all it was a positive tournament for him. Nevertheless, it is concerning that his head-to-head against Djokovic is 2 wins and 15 losses, and since beating him in the 2014 US Open, he has lost 14 straight times. If Nishikori is ever to win a Grand Slam or an ATP World Tour Masters 1000 tournament, he will have to overcome the wall that is Novak Djokovic. That being said, I did make sure to watch all of Japan's national soccer team's games, even if I couldn't watch live and ended up taping it. When I assured Hide-san to this effect, he gave me a look of relief. 2. Soccer is a social media sport. Sports each have their own unique media attributes. For example, baseball is very suited for the radio. Part of it is that it came into the American mainstream consciousness at a time when radio was the only medium for getting live games. At the same time, you could also say baseball became the American pastime precisely because of the radio. Games are dramatic narratives that unfold at a leisurely pace. Sometimes nothing happens for long stretches of time, while sometimes a single hit completely changes the flow of the game. Critically, those moments where nothing much happens turned out to be perfect for airing sponsor messages. These days, the youth of America seem to be drifting away from baseball, but according to a report from Nielsen, it still remains the most listened to sport on the radio. Meanwhile, football is very much suited for television. The Super Bowl, held on the first Sunday of February, continues to be the most watched TV program of the year, with commercial airtime being the most expensive in the world. What's more, the technological wizardry on display gets better every year, from snazzy computer graphics that appear to be displayed directly on the field to show how many yards until a touchdown, to 360-degree replay footage. Football broadcasts are television at its most entertaining. Soccer is suited for the social media age. The biggest reason is that it's such a democratic sport. Yes, it has its megastars and athletes like Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. But in the end, soccer matches are decided not by how brightly a team's star player shines, but how that team is able to work together. Case in point, the Japanese national soccer team upsetting Colombia in their opening Group H match. Moreover, compared to football and baseball, soccer is an international sport. And that borderless quality makes it a good match for social media. Soccer clubs around the world actively use social media to disseminate news and updates, and more importantly, engage with fans worldwide. As for tennis, I would say the sport is not an ideal fit for mass media, not in the least. Professional matches unfold at a rapid pace, with the key being how a player builds a point or breaks down their opponent's defenses. Mesmerizing to watch, but a nightmare to commentate on live. No matter how seasoned a commentator, it is simply close to impossible to convey all the nuances of what is happening on the court through a medium such as the radio. And as for TV, tennis is tricky in that one of the players may retire 30 minutes into the match. On the other hand, at Grand Slams, men's best-of-5-set singles matches regularly go on for 3 or even 4 or more hours. For a TV station that wants to exercise control over its broadcast schedule, the starting time and length of a tennis match is a variable that is difficult to account for. At the same time, tennis is not particularly apt for social media. Although it is unmistakably a global sport, compared to team sports like baseball, football, and soccer, tennis is largely a solo sport. The amount of time and energy individual players and their management team put into social media is simply not on the level of a sport like soccer. Furthermore, tennis is unique in that spectators are urged to remain silent between points, and booing is frowned upon, and even considered shameful. It is a gentleman's sport where a lot is asked of the spectators, and for a sports fan that likes to provide loud vocal support for their player and boo the opponent, I imagine tennis is a frustrating sport. Watching a tennis game live is for people with plenty of time and money on their hands, largely free from worldly cares, as well as for people who simply have a passionate love for the game. 3. My wardrobe for this week. Green jacket by Azabu Taylor. Orange chinos by Brooks Brothers. Slip-ons by Timberland. Gray striped shirt by Fabric Tokyo. Orange socks by Tabio. Black glasses by Zoff. 4. Epilogue. After we were done with the taping, I headed over to the makeup area, as usual, to get my makeup removed. Just as I was finishing up, a member of the staff suddenly came up to me and said that the producers wanted to see me. For a split second, I thought that perhaps they had finally had the last straw in terms of my monotone line readings on the show. Nevertheless, I quickly headed back to the meeting room for the show. I slowly opened the door to the meeting room, and a darkened room suddenly came to life, revealing the producers as well as members of the staff. On top of the table in the middle of the room was a mixed berry cake from Teobroma with a lit candle on top. It was my birthday, which just happened to coincide with one of our weekly tapings. This was the first time in more than 10 years that I had a party of sorts, celebrated by many people, and so I'm not usually one to get too emotional, but I felt my cheeks blushing. Sekai Hashin SNS Eigojutsu has 2 chief producers. I'd bonded with one over our mutual appreciation for jazz music, and she gifted me an Eric Dolphy live concert album. With the other producer, we're constantly making references to American comedy shows and films, and he gifted me a Rakugo CD from Tatekawa Shinnosuke for me to become more familiar with Japanese comedy. A huge thanks to my 2 producers and all of the staff working on the show. Language and Education 9. Baseball is for radio, football is for TV, soccer is for social media. NHK E-Tele SNS Eigojutsu. #World Cup. Aired July 19, 2018. www.digtokyo.jp